Treatise upon the Misconceptions of Narcissism by Mwanandeke Kindembo, read by Kambwala Kindembo. Introduction. As the title suggests, this treatise deals with the emotional side of the human being rather than the intellectual side. A narcissist is an individual who focuses on exploring their feelings as well as of others. And in the end, the narcissist uses both methods to his or her advantages. His aim is to attack your feelings, which are the base and the daughter of love when all the desires are placed into consideration. I wrote about the 4 main desires in my first book, What They Asked Me, The Fear of Living and Dying Young. These are love, wealth, power, and knowledge. However, I left a question mark in the book that challenged anyone to suggest the 5th desire to me. Therefore, I will take this opportunity to include health as the 5th desire, simply because wisdom comes when knowledge is put into practice. Love is the lowest desire because even animals understand the meaning of love and what it means to be loved. At least we can observe how the animals demonstrate their love to each other. This is the truth that cannot be denied by anyone whose mind is sound. Love is simply a bundle of feelings that we express, whether to attract, arouse, or communicate our thoughts to someone else. When a person lacks that first desire in life, they will become vulnerable and despise everything that a normal person considers to be good. They will lack the ability to see the goodness nor the beauty in things that are presented before their eyes. That is why it is beneficial to know how to deal with and identify the attributes of a narcissist. Otherwise, we will never be able to avoid their traps nor keep them distant from us when we need peace in our lives. This treatise explores different narcissistic behaviors in several places and will give you a broad view of what narcissism truly stands for in our societies. To conclude on the desires, it would be wise to begin with love and then follow up with the other 4 desires. At the same time, we must consider that wisdom is embedded in knowledge. Here is the list of the desires in order: love, wealth, health, power, and knowledge. The other 4 main desires are illustrated in the book mentioned in the previous paragraph. At this stage, I will cease to speak about health and focus more on the emotional side, as this treatise is mainly based on narcissism. Apologizing and listening. I strongly believe you will agree that not everyone who apologizes first is the one at fault. Therefore, this statement cannot describe narcissistic behaviors nor make a person among them. Perhaps we call it as arrogance to indicate their lack of participation in bringing peace between the 2 or more people. Learning new things. Here too, we can see that not being open to learn something does not automatically make someone a narcissist. In fact, a narcissist is required to be more knowledgeable in many fields, mostly in psychology. In this way, they can easily seduce, attract, and manipulate anyone of their liking. A person who is not willing to expand his intellect can be called a fixed-minded rather than an open-minded person. Moreover, I will summarize the definition of a narcissist in order to illustrate my argument. We are all aware that a narcissist is a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. In other words, a narcissist is the person who thinks that the world revolves around him or her. It appears that they are more interested in themselves more than they are interested in other living beings. Types of leaders. Let's take a quick look at the narcissistic behaviors in our leaders, the people whom we've placed in the high offices to represent us in our daily lives. Do you believe that some of our leaders can escape this argument on narcissism? Or do you think they are the fittest people that deserve praises? If you hate politics and most of the politicians, then I do not know why I should leave the leaders out of this argument. Otherwise, it will make all, or at least the majority of the world leaders, religious, political, coaches, etc., narcissists at the same time. Moreover, most of the world leaders listen to their guts instead of caring excessively about the opinions around them. Upon imaginary thinking. The lesser we have to care about whether someone is a narcissist or not, the better we will end up improving our private lives. It seems childish enough to imagine that most of our bravest and heroic figures have turned into narcissists during our generation. What has become of our minds these days? What are we consuming that is turning us into weaklings? We must try our best to avoid that kind of pitiful thinking and give them the credit they deserve. No doubt the world is becoming more feminine as each day passes by. But now we have reached a very dangerous stage in our lives, the stage of neglecting our gifts and talents in order to feed those who cannot reach the same level as us. Are these the effects of democracy upon our children, or is it the corrupted educational system enforced upon them? We must at once re-educate the next generation not to fall prey to this lowly level of thinking, thus making them strong enough to survive the next episode of life. Married people. Observe well how the word narcissism is often used into marriages. The victims are often those who have separated with their significant other rather than being on good terms with them. Therefore, we must dig deeper to the core of the word and discover its true meaning. In return, we will get a glimpse of our mentality and the main attributes that drive us to label each other with that conflicted word. Upon that, the question arises, does that mean the narcissist is the one who manipulates his or her partner? Or it is simply the result after a breakup? If not, then how come only a few married people experience it compared to those couples who have been in long-term relationships? It is with no doubt that there is trouble in every household, but I do not see the motive behind labeling each other as narcissists only after separation has occurred. I am, however, talking from experience. After consulting with the majority of people who are victims of narcissistic disorders, I must take this precious time to make a sincere prayer upon their souls and help them find eternal peace of mind in the near future. It seems that even the word peace in general does not come at a free cost, meaning that peace can be obtained only when one is acknowledged as a master over the other, perhaps even in love. Freedom can still be considered sweeter than peace. That is to say that you're capable of scheduling and rescheduling your plans without waiting for the approval of any third party. That, my dear friend, is what I refer to as pure peace of mind. You must allow your free will to roam as freely as you want and delve deep into your dreams. Never limit yourself nor live accordingly to the appetite of someone else. Thus, you will end up counterbalancing the other person and living together in great harmony. At the end of the day, it would be wise to learn how to cooperate with each other so as not to put yourself first most of the time. The age gap. While examining the true meaning of the word narcissist, I came across another issue. The main issue is that of the age gap between two individuals. Allow me to ask you a simple question. At what age is a person considered a narcissist? If you think and believe that the age gap does not matter here, then you're trying to follow your instinctive consciousness instead of using the intellectual consciousness. By involving the intellect, you will be able to reason your way out of this great mess. It is all true that the age gap does not matter in determining the characteristics of a narcissist. While examining the true meaning of the word narcissist, I came across another issue. The main issue is that of the age gap between two individuals. Allow me to ask you a simple question. At what age is a person considered a narcissist? If you think and believe that the age gap does not matter here, then you're trying to follow your instinctive consciousness instead of using the intellectual consciousness. By involving the intellect, you will be able to reason your way out of this great mess. It is all true that the age gap does not matter in determining the characteristics of a narcissist. Allow me, once again, to take you to a short journey. Now, imagine that a 7-year-old boy is displaying what you consider as the narcissistic behaviors to a teenage girl of 18 years. Would you condemn that 7-year-old boy for being too mean to that girl mentioned above? If not, why do you think this boy is still an innocent child who does not have much knowledge of what is truly going on? In short, you cannot drag a 7-year-old child into the court of law, and even if you do, the child will always win the case. That is why I had to consider the age gap when talking about narcissism in this treatise. We must identify and know whom we are currently dealing with before taking a step further. The wise person must always consider and reconsider all the alternatives before jumping to the final conclusion. Furthermore, the objective views are not the results of our philosophical ideologies and the definitions of our terms. As I am not a student of law, nor do I claim any concrete knowledge on the subject, I think that it would be wise to leave with you that single example on how the age gap matters. In this case, it can be said that the 18-year-old girl is behaving childishly by calling that little boy a narcissist. Therefore, contradicting the whole process of making someone qualified as having narcissistic behaviors, the younger the individual, the less likely they will be labeled as being an oppressor, meaning justice has been delivered equally on both sides of the case. Moreover, the case will be closed and the older individual will carry all the blames throughout her life. Perhaps she can claim the title of being the victim of narcissism after that boy has reached maturity. Here too, I leave your mind to wander freely without any limitation pressed upon it. The art of parenting. Let's take a different route and examine the characteristics of narcissism in our parents. I strongly believe that your mind is filled with your childhood memories and that you can easily remember them vividly. For those of you who are still going through the process of identifying and daily examining your parents, you must not forget the blessings that they are still alive and living together with you. The majority of people have already lost their parents, and so they live with sorrow and anguish. My prayers will always be with them, as I do not know how it feels to be raised without the affection of parents. However, the fact that we must love our parents cannot limit us from observing and identifying their daily behaviors, both negative and positive. We are going to look more into their narcissistic behaviors and examine the negative energy emitted from them. You must remember that we are not the ones on the road to becoming pessimists, but we are taking the neutral path and leaving our emotions behind us. In this case, we wish to make use of our minds rather than being carried away by our feelings. Moreover, we cannot wish to judge anyone nor wish to be judged in return, meaning we must dwell on the neutral side in order to fully understand ourselves and those who are consistently causing us trouble in our daily lives. Therefore, we wish not to judge our parents for being too severe or strict, because the majority of us will sooner or later become parents too, thus making it an endless cycle of narcissists on the earth. One final example that most of us can relate to is when your parents prefers one child over the rest, or when one parent tries to promote himself or herself of always being correct, caring, and helping than the other. Where else can we place these attributes except in narcissistic behaviors? Is there a greater sin more unimaginable than the pretense of knowing everything, or the art of thinking that one's opinions are always the best in every situation? At last, we have reached a point where we are sure we cannot place this label of narcissistic behavior upon our parents, simply because they were there, or still are, teaching us the correct ways of living. The advice of our parents will vary according to the country we are currently living in and the dominant political ideologies, Politideos, of that environment. Therefore, we will end up forgiving and forgetting their faults and only to remember their good deeds of raising us. After all, they took great care of you when you were still helpless, nor able to utter a single word. At this point, we must let our emotions dominate us instead of delving much deeper into the matter. Nor can we seek any vengeance, but take a glimpse and let old memories slip away. Let's live in the present moment instead of consistently seeking for more trouble in past events. I have understood that you're claiming it's almost impossible to forgive, but only easier to forget. The truth is that you can only forgive that which you have forced your mind to forget. We must forget first, then forgiveness will come by itself. The Art of Teasing and Relationship. Here is where the word narcissism is mainly focused in our generation. This is because it is mostly used in relationships and marriages. It appears both amusing and terrifying at the same time. The majority of the women claim to be victims of narcissistic behaviors. I have no doubt that this is something to do with the newly introduced gender equality. I called it new because it's been put into practice only in the past decades. In the beginning, the world was first owned by a man, but now we can see the table being turned around. Men are now being forced to kneel down and beg women for mercy. Yes, I told you that there is peace only after one person takes the lead. This is the universal law of nature. Imagine a universe with several supreme beings who can create and destroy at will. There will never be peace between them because some will wish to destroy while some will insist on the constructive side. The fact that the worlds are still standing for billions of years can be enough as a proof that there is only one supreme being governing the whole universe. Enough with the scientific and religious talks. We are not here to introduce another meaningless argument that will lead to nowhere. However, we are here to examine and talk about those things which can be experienced, not only seen through the naked eye. In this case, if I mentioned only the things that can be seen, this would have given credit to the scientists while at the same time arousing the religious people. But if I relied upon things which we can imagine, this will further arouse the minds of the scientists and leave the religious leaders satisfied. Therefore, I decided to embark on the experience rather than relying upon the imaginary and intellectual mind alone. By experience, I mean mysticism. Without doubt, the mystics have assessed the cosmic consciousness and they're capable to use their intuitive abilities unlike the majority of people. This is the highest knowledge one can ever seek to possess in our age. My belief is that the mystics will never be happy nor sad because I took their side. Indeed, this is the right path that does not allow any type of fanaticism to penetrate the mind. In my noble opinion, these are the wisest human beings to ever exist. At this point, you must be wondering whether I lost my mind or am simply letting my imagination overwhelm me. Either way, you're correct. I raised the mystics up to the ladder of knowledge in order to illustrate that one cannot be a narcissist when you're being praised by others. It's only the act of praising oneself than you deserve which makes one a narcissist, or rather, you're on the road of suffering the narcissistic disorder. You cannot deny it. I have teased your mind while at the same time showing the relationship of things. Furthermore, I do not know whether you are capable of identifying the ego taking over in the few last sentences. The I is the ego that we must avoid at any cost. If we truly wish to be different from the narcissists, instead of using I repeatedly, it would be wise to replace it with we. Only through this path can we reach the promised land of the mystics. Otherwise, we will be no better than those who we consistently label as having narcissistic behaviours. Perhaps we are both in the same boat, but only setting off to different destinations. The so-called innocents are still wearing the skins of sheep to cover their evil intentions. Thus, we must avoid flatterers at any cost, so as not to become their victims. The laws of attractions. Nowadays, we are faced with so many laws that promise quick results in attracting the opposite sex to us, whilst at the same time, these laws or principles were viewed by the religious people as being evil instead of good. In other words, they are harmful towards us, and it brings less benefit in general terms. Everyone seems and pretends to know the laws of attraction, but in reality, they know nothing about them, simply because the laws are imaginary. The majority of the people do not seem to agree upon one single law that can be used with less effort in attracting the ideal life partner to us. I believe that you will agree with me when I say it takes almost 30 days to form a new habit. As you can tell, it's not an easy task, as it seems to be. Therefore, one can easily claim that these laws of attraction have contributed much in teaching the people how to seduce, manipulate, and attract others into their daily lives. When they are used by the wrong person or these laws fall into the wrong hands, then we can expect for the worst cases to happen. Seduction, like attraction, is spoken about in a more positive manner in our generation, forgetting the fact that these attributes involve bending the will of another person in order to make our ends meet our means. When you begin to seduce or manipulate the minds of others, there you have already gone beyond the religious beliefs. If you thought yourself as a religious person before committing these acts, then you're in the safe hands. But you cannot be religious at the same time after applying these methods of attraction on another individual. In short, this is the main road that leads people to turn into narcissists, because it is not moral nor fair to force another person to think and act according to your wishes. You are simply taking away their free will and the glory they were gifted by the Supreme One. I must therefore bring forward an example to clarify this complex point. Philosophically speaking, anyone who uses tricks to get an upper hand over others is referred to as a sophist. Therefore, you can also be called a sophist because you wish to gain all for yourself, even when you are wrong, or you were the one who was supposed to apologize to your partner. A sophist is someone who would go to such an extent to defend his point until it makes sense to others, proving that he is correct even when he is in fact truly wrong. They were referred to as such after they decided to teach each other this type of knowledge. You will not be wrong to call it the forbidden knowledge that must be kept away from humankind. It is true that we all lie on some occasions, but that does not mean we should make lying to become the universal law for everyone. After this, we will end up losing the trust in humanity and no one will take care of anything, because you will see and find the two-faced people everywhere. Thus, avoid wasting your valuable time with them. The Sophists, like the narcissists, in our generation are capable of persuading anyone by using their forbidden knowledge to deceive men. Narcissists, however, are similar to a spider that has built a web for its prey to bring itself. They are perfect at calculating events and predicting your next moves, because they can easily read your mind on the information that you've decided to share with them since your first encounter. This is where the famous saying of knowledge is power comes into the arena. That famous saying is only applicable to this simple example, but in reality it's not as it claims to be, meaning I disagree with it. Because knowledge is a desire that comes after acquiring power, the first type of desire is love, then wealth, health, power, and knowledge. Therefore, it can be said that when you've acquired power under your feet, you will also long to be wise or gain knowledge. This is either the wisdom to keep your position or the knowledge to attract more people towards you and make them remain within your service. It can be seen that the narcissist only focuses on the famous saying, the end justifies the means, meaning it does not matter which approach you take in dealing with your issues as long as you achieve what you were seeking from the very beginning of your journey. Leadership. I am certain that you have heard of many people who despise the government of their countries. These people are mostly irritated by the behaviours that most politicians have in common, that is lying or being cunning in most cases. Perhaps you are one of those who despise these unacceptable behaviours in our society. Instead of claiming that these politicians are so annoying, why do we not bother with labeling them as narcissists? Because they share so much in common with the narcissists: manipulation, seduction, attraction, anything you can think of which can bend your desire to do something against your will. We are consistently bombarded with propagandistic posts and promised change in every election. It is the same thing for those who are constantly waiting for the future to unveil before their eyes. But before you reach the promised year, you will end up setting your goals much higher than before, and you become too blind to witness the future that you were waiting for all along. Anybody who wishes to go beyond the free will of another person is already practicing narcissistic characteristics. We must practice democracy instead of talking about it. Spoken words end up without effect in our society. The word democracy is easier said than practiced, and it's the main factor which can turn our respected world leaders into manipulators. They are the deceptive wolves in the sheep's clothing during the elections, but reveal their true colors after achieving their goals. These leaders are unpredictable and thus unreliable to lead the population. This is because it is almost impossible to command without being an exemplar and to lead without helping those whom you wish to get into your laps. We must avoid these cunning behaviors at all cost and try to remember how we got where we are today. The governments must rely upon the people in the same manner that the people are relying on the governments. These two bodies must go hand in hand by building a better future for the next generation. Schooling system. Is it true that there are some narcissistic behaviors in our school, that the departments or staff are using manipulative methods to control the educational systems? The pupils are often told to know your place, to sit into the same spot every time you enter into a classroom, meaning you're given one chance to make your final decision at the very start of each semester, even if that behavior is not practiced in your school. Why were you or your child never changed to a different spot in the classroom? What made you love the same place that you sat in from the very beginning of the semester? Was it out of luck or by choice without any emotional influence? If it is traumatizing to follow the same lecture every week, then what makes it desirable to sit in the same place daily? Should you not change the place as often as you wish without any influence from the third party? The majority of the students must follow exactly what they are told by the teacher or lecturer and try to answer in the same manners during the examinations. Thus, this system is gradually killing your creativity, at the same time forcing you to absorb directly the thoughts and the mindsets of the teacher. In return, the pupil will be unable to go beyond their limitations nor exceed the one who taught him, because they have the mentality enslaved to believe anything without any experience of the matter in question. We must be extremely cautious in inviting others directly into our subconsciousness in order to avoid falling under their spells unknowingly. The student must be allowed to develop his thinking ability and creativity instead of repressing them from an early age. By leaving these negative attributes with its owner, we can claim that there are not narcissistic behaviours at school. In other words, the teacher should not assume that he or she is always correct or try to make the worst cases appear reasonable before his pupils. On the other hand, the teacher should accept the corrections as much as they love to do it to others. This method is the only one that can allow every child to reach his or her true potential in life, instead of getting lost after the completion of their third level studies. It is without doubt nowadays that many students lack the ability to know or find their true passions in life. After all the criticisms they went to, whether it is at school, college, university, or any learning environment, this lack of creativity seems to increase more in our generation rather than decreasing, because we are forgetting the fact that we have all the information at our fingertips. Allow me to talk from experience. I notice that I cannot excel at all the modules at school, but I can still learn them and catch up at my own pace, thus improving on my weaknesses and turning them into strengths. This method is possible only when you have refused any outside influencer to always tell you what and when is the best time to do something. We learn better when we are alone instead of getting involved with large groups of people. You should not allow yourself to be compared to the mob or the people who are ready to rebel against a regime which they believe does not serve their interests any longer. Great ideas only come when we are deeply thinking alone, and thus making it much easier to put these thoughts into action. Furthermore, we are not promoting the idea of self-isolation or telling you to be in quarantine at all times, because too much isolation can be a danger to you and your health. It is a hazard to the common people, as well as a benefit to those who know how to use their free time. You can accept to lose everything in life, but not courage and time. Whether you're in a toxic relationship or you wish to make that final decision which will change your life, you must not, at any cost, allow this time to pass while sitting idle. Most of the people love talking about all the types of sin, but I am sure that they often forget about idleness. It is the mother of all sins. You ought to be consistently working on yourself and aiming for full transformation that will improve the environment in which you're living in. Change is good only when you know yourself, when you have set your mind to finding your destination rather than relying on imaginary promises that may be changed at any moment and without further notice. The politicians use it to their own advantage when we decide to vote for them. They are all the same, perhaps spring from the same mother. Lying and cunning behaviors are deeply embedded into their DNAs. It is too late to change that because we have allowed them to grow so tall like ivy on old walls. Thus, we end up blaming ourselves for the mistakes that we are willing to repeat sooner or later. I strongly believe that only 2 words are worthy to describe and bring solace to the voters. These are forgive and forget. We must forgive them because they do not appear to notice all the harms they are doing to the population. Moreover, we ought to forget what harm the previous ruler committed in order to advance in the future. As the future is said to always be brighter, there will be a hope of finding a great leader that will never disappoint his people. Politics is similar to love, and this is to say that the individual is constantly seeking for an ideal partner who will be there during the times of need. And when our needs are met, we decide to give that person any name we want without registering all the goodness they did for us in the past. As you can tell, at this crucial point in life, it is only the present moment that matters to us and not the past events. We are quick to forgive and forget about the past or our memories when we find the present satisfying. Perhaps it is beautiful to forgive in politics and love, but that does not mean to embrace and trust them fully without further examination. Otherwise, you must be ready once again to be met with the same disappointments at the door or the existing point. Who is to be accused and who deserves praises in this game of mind tricks? The answer will come to you at your own pace or after thinking about the question unceasingly. You must allow your imagination to wander freely and fetch the desired responses, thus tapping into your own intuitive abilities. You will be presented with the facts that are unique and preferable to you alone. You will be the creator and the judge of your own thoughts for the very first time in your life. The judge who judges his own problems instead of being those who put their noses into matters of others. You must be among those who apply critical thinking and solve the presented challenges from experience rather from the knowledge of books alone. Therefore, the pupils should be allowed to become more adventurous instead of teaching them to become too cautious at an early age. The judge also must behave like a child in order to make sense out of a senseless case. The judge presented in a course takes everything seriously, but nothing personal. They achieve this merit by tapping into their own creativity and allowing their imagination to go wild, at the same time solving real-world problems, or the most troublesome issues emerging in our societies. The effects of society. We have finally reached the stage of examining the society that we were raised in. It is without doubt that our societies can either make or break us. That's why we should not avoid mentioning it in this short treatise of narcissism in terms of Philideos, philosophical ideology. It can easily be seen that we are mostly the finished products of our societies. It is your society that will form your philosophical ideologies. Being biased or unbiased depends on how you were raised during your childhood. It is either you were great at following the rules or you were always rebellious in your society, meaning you fall into the category of people who used to read the forbidden books on the shelves or simply left them from fear of your government after being told about the must and must not do tasks. In simple words, the matter of breaking the rules or laws of the state that you're living in. Knowledge cannot and should not be restricted to a few only. The citizens should be allowed to read and write whatever their minds find attractive, without any type of limitation on certain subjects that they do not find any pleasure in. The governmental system should not get involved nor allow itself to suppress useful materials simply because they do not agree with the newly introduced ideologies. The refraining of freedom of speech from the governmental system can cause its citizens to turn into narcissists in their free time. Their mentality will be the products or limitation imposed within that country they have been living in. Therefore, your Philideos are the products of your perception of the society you have been raised. Furthermore, it can be said that Politideos depends entirely on the system that is being dominant in your environment. That is to say, a capitalist regime is more likely to produce these narcissistic behaviors in its citizens compared to a socialist country. In the society where competition is a driving force and a motto for every citizen, you can always expect less love emitted from it. Thus, you will be met with racial issues as well as too many broken hearts. In that society, love will be viewed as nothing but just a mere name that does not carry any meaning. Thus, love will lose its true meaning and be taken for granted by the common people as well as the elites. It will result in a society that does not give support to its citizens nor give them the freedom they deserve. A society where emotions come last and selfishness is considered blessed or placed first before anything cannot be expected to produce good fruits. A friend of mine asked me a great question concerning friendship, and I am not willing to leave it out from this treatise. Here is the question and the answer I gave him. What do successful, smart, and wealthy people know about friendships? Answer. Allow me to clear the first misunderstanding here. To be wealthy is to be successful too. However, you can be successful in many ways, and success can come in different shapes and colors. Furthermore, you can expect a smart person to become successful in academic matters. There are 3 in 1. Thus, we are left with the question, what do successful people know about friendships? Or do they value friendships before anything else? We have teased the question. Now let's go straight to the answering part. Please bear with me until to the end. Economically speaking, you must always put yourself before anyone else. Your friends or friendships matter so little to you. Your first aim is to be on the top, no matter which methods you used to achieve that position. You are told to become successful first. Then you can seek to help your fellow friends or those who are at the very bottom of the ladder. Therefore, making them work so hard for you in order that you may achieve more and keep that top position at the same time. The philosophy of it's better to be feared than to be loved. If you think those words sound familiar to you, then you're correct. I'm not reading your mind. I am simply talking about capitalism. In the second scenario, you are told to organize and educate each other in order to reach the same goal, or making it possible for your comrades or friends to make their dream come true. In other words, teamwork and daily motivating each other. Elevating the minds of each of the members and not leaving out any weakling in your group. You are simply learning from one another and both of you are benefiting at the same time, thus making progress without jealousy nor envy of others. You are all into the same boat, with one mission in mind. Can you guess this second philosophical idea? Quick answer. It's called socialism. To summarize this answer, in the capitalism environment, friendships is of little value compared in the socialism society. In capitalism environment, you are simply using your friends to achieve your aims when leaving them in the same state they were in. Only few people or elites will be on top of everything. No true friendship can be found in this society because their motto is, the end justifies the means. In a socialist society, people are always motivated to achieve unity and the truest form of freedom, organizing themselves and coming to help those who are in need. You will find organizations such as social welfare that take great care and give support to the poor, unemployed, old people, widow, etc. The main aim here is to create a comfortable environment that will be suitable for everyone, thus making them feel loved and never losing hope of living. In short, you are all equal in everything except in ideas. The shortest answer to What do successful, smart, and wealthy people know about friendships is that it depends on whether you're living under the capitalist regime or under socialism. You can try to mix capitalism and socialism together, but you cannot be both at the same time. In the end, one system will always take over the other, resulting in a true or false friendship. Summary. It can be seen that the judges are not afraid to explore their childhood experiences or going back to their animal nature. That is the level of the first desire, which is love. This is the stage of using instinctive mind or the subconsciousness. This stage of the mind deals with guessing the answers and bringing forth all the knowledge we have learned and practiced in our lives. In other words, tapping in the true wisdom according to how much you have learned throughout. No energy or intelligence is required to come up with the response here. It is composed of pure cosmic energy and thoughts. It is the blueprint of your existence into this world. Critical thinking is applied when an individual goes above the subconsciousness and reaches the conscious mind. The second stage of the mind is called consciousness or the intellectual mind. This is when you begin to solve complex challenges presented before you. The last stage is called supra-consciousness, cosmic consciousness, or simply moral mind. I believe that you're aware of the main three bases of the human being: body, mind, and spirit. The cosmic consciousness is linked with your soul or with one tape in their intuitive abilities. All the geniuses can be classified into this last stage of the mind, and only few people have achieved that experience of the highest type of intelligence. Some we call gods, prophets, saints, and others are called geniuses. In my noble opinion, they are all in the same category as long as they've lived upon this planet Earth and under the sun. Most of the narcissists are geniuses and masters of psychology, but they are using their knowledge just to eradicate rather than help humanity. Same thing can be said when it comes to witches and the witch doctors. Both are the same, but only differ in their motives. The former wish to cause harm, while the latter wish to help those who are suffering around them. It can be said that knowledge is similar to a mirror. It will show you where the dirt is located, but it will never remove it for you. We can reap its fruits only when we apply that knowledge at the right time, and the correct cause that will benefit us and the whole humanity in general. Finally, I am aware that you've been betrayed by your loved ones or the closest friends in your life. I might be wrong on this point, but most of us have been there and tasted the bitter fruits of betrayal. I hope this treatise has armed you with applicable knowledge of how to identify and avoid narcissists in your daily life. You must avoid repeating history or being asked these famous questions. Why did you allow someone to have complete control over your mind for that duration of time? And what did you want to achieve in that relationship by putting your fate in someone's hands? Perhaps you thought it was better to be a follower than taking the lead or responsibilities into your own hands. Now you know the answers to those questions. We must learn how to respect ourselves and know our worth in life, thus avoiding future traps that are waiting for us along the way. We must not, however, see everything with a pessimist's eyes. Our eyes should be set upon a bright star and always expecting the best rather than expecting for the worst cases to happen. In conclusion, we must define our terms and allow others to define theirs too, without any pressure. The individuals are therefore advised to respect themselves before wishing an outsider to come and show respect. The wise man always put more energy in his cause than the expected outcomes, and I hope that you will follow the same path advised by our ancestors.